Another year of pain looms for Greece as the country's parliament approves an austerity budget which will force more biting cuts upon an already struggling population. It's been a precondition from international lenders who have been delaying another bailout cash injection for months now. Thousands of Greeks gathered outside parliament to voice their opposition to next year's budget. Well, its approval follows another even more extensive austerity package that sparked violent protests last week. For more on this, I'm now joined by John Laughlin, Director of Studies at the Institute of Democracy and Cooperation in Paris. John, thanks very much for being with us here in the program. First off, the Greek government, as we know, keeps cutting spending despite fierce opposition on the streets. So at this point, do the MPs themselves believe that these measures are actually helping the country's economy?
It's difficult to know what the MPs themselves believe because we can see that the kinds of measures that have been imposed on Greece for more than 2 years now, because this crisis has been going on for a very long time, as you know, these measures are actually making the situation worse. The economy is in free fall. It's been in free fall now for over a year. And the fact is that the Greek political class, like the rest of the European political class, is, in a sense, I think, prisoner of its own ideology. It's the prisoner of the European ideology, and this ideology exerts such a power over people that they are prepared to do things which, by any rational measure, are obviously counterproductive in order to preserve the European project, the euro in particular. They are determined to do everything to keep the single currency intact, even to destroy their own country, to send youth unemployment up over 50%, to put the economy into a massive recession, and so on.
Well,
we've seen things like...
As you just described, the Greek economy, there you said it's in free fall. And in fact, to illustrate how dire the economy is, we know that 1 in 4 Greeks are out of work and a fifth of the population is living below the poverty line. So the question here is, what can be done to remedy the economy? What you've just said and what's obvious, what's on the surface, does that mean that the economy is beyond repair?
It's certainly beyond repair, given the present situation. In other words, given membership of the euro. It's important to understand that these measures are making the situation worse. I don't just mean they're making the economy worse. They're definitely making the economy worse. They are making Greece's debt situation worse. The debt ratio in Greece is predicted to be 190% of GDP by next year. That's much higher than it was when the first bailout plan was agreed. And this shows that the recession that these measures are producing are making the debt situation worse, because the economy is being forced to contract, or in other words, to collapse. And as a result, the debt ratio, in terms of ratio to GDP, is going up. So these measures are making things worse. And you asked me whether the economy is beyond repair. No, it would be. Many other countries have found themselves in this position before, Russia, Argentina, and so on in the 1990s. And what they did was to devalue and default, and to devalue their way back into competitivity. And all the economic history shows that that works. The reason why it's not being adopted is because of this attachment to the European ideology that I mentioned.
All right. Well, some countries are obviously doing something to remedy the situation. And let's now talk about Germany's chancellor visit to Portugal, which is another struggling country economically. And later in the day, she will be in the country where thousands of people have signed an open letter, in fact, against her. And we, of course, saw similar sentiment when she came to Greece last month. So why are people so angry about her personally?
Because Germany is perceived by these peripheral countries as being a hegemonial power which dictates the terms of euro membership. It's as simple as that. And this shows that the euro project has again failed on its own terms. The idea, of course, was to bring the peoples of Europe ever closer together. By creating a single monetary zone, the idea was that the peoples of Europe would effectively soon become members of one state and would feel themselves to be members of one people. Precisely the opposite has happened. We have precisely seen national resentments, and I would even say, hatreds growing between North and South in Europe. In other words, the more that the peoples of Europe are pushed together in an unnatural and undemocratic structure, the more they end up resenting each other. And these kinds of phenomena, the ones you've mentioned in Greece and Portugal, are the proof of this. They are the proof that this project is not working in its own terms.
Well, of course, as we can see, emotions are running quite high. And there's another interesting situation there, which is, of course, driven by emotions in a way as well. In France, a mayor of a Paris suburb is on a hunger strike demanding more state help for his impoverished city. So how widespread is his depth of despair, in your opinion?
Well, I think this is a media stunt, but in a sense it is worth commenting on, because although France is not in the same situation as Greece or Portugal or the other peripheral states, nonetheless it is heading in that direction. The kind of policies that the new French government has announced are also going to produce recession here. The only way to pay off debt, the only way if a country is heavily indebted, as indeed are all European countries to different degrees, but they're all in debt, is of course to grow and to have more income tax or tax revenue coming into the state coffers so that the debt burden can be reduced. That only happens when the economy is growing. It doesn't happen by raising taxes. We know from the Laffer curve, we've known since the 1980s, that raising taxes can very often reduce the overall take that the state has. And France, although the situation is quite different in France, nonetheless the tendency is the same. So this kind of media stunt shows that the austerity measures introduced in France will ultimately have a similar effect to the ones that they are having in southern Europe.
All right. Well, John Laughlin, thanks very much indeed for your analysis. That was Director of Studies in the Institute of Democracy and Cooperation in Paris.